For the next 20 minutes, I'm going to demonstrate a skill that I've mastered and I've reached to so for the next 20 minutes. I'm going to demonstrate a skill that I believe I've mastered, and that is to use my teacher voice, and I will do the best that I can. To put in perspective what I'm trying to do, this is a whole different approach to talking with the AMSAT community. And I know that all of us, as we grow up and become adults, we've invested in our retirement. We know when we can retire, or some of us don't, or some of us can't. But most of us, we think about the future and think about making sure that our kids and our grandkids are taken care of. But at the same time, in this community, in this arena, a lot of times what I discover from listening to my husband and listening to everything that he does, which is KY5Q right there, the investment is from this point forward. And so what I'd like to share with you today is how he has taught me as an educator the importance, the criticalness of getting students, getting these kids down in the elementary level to be ready to take our place. Ready to take our place as you are setting up AMSAT and as the world is changing and we decide to retire and move to Reno for our retirement years, you got to have somebody coming up. All right, so I'm driving, correct? No? Who's driving the up and down? Here we go. So what I want to talk to quickly with you today is, what is STEM trajectory? What does it mean? That's what we called it. That was just the name that I named it 4 or 5 years ago. Why did we need to come up with this? Has it worked? And why are we here today? First of all, before I speak to this slide, the students that I am working with in Albuquerque Public Schools are Title I students. Title I is a federal program that takes care of families and their children that are of a very low socioeconomic level. So all of the schools right now that we're working with are students that receive Title I funding, which means that they get a free breakfast because their families can't afford it. And they get a free lunch because their families can't afford it. And they get free school supplies because their families can't afford it. So I want to put in perspective what we're working with. And it's not, oh, that is so sad. It's that, yes, these are the kids that are becoming addicted to their potential. And I think that's important for us to keep in mind. What is STEM trajectory? Well, right now, I represent it as 4 years of changing students' minds about their ability to be scientists and technicians and engineers and mathematicians. It's 4 years of changing teachers' minds. Those of in the minority here that are teachers, it has been a pendulum shift like no other in history, where we as educators have to shift from being the sage on the stage, being the person that stands and delivers our wisdom, and those that are in our classrooms are so excited to learn. It's different now. Teaching students that there is a connection between language and between writing and STEM. There's a connection. It doesn't stand alone. And showing students that they actually can reach the International Space Station. Now, the next slide that I go to is the short video. I know you've seen a million of them, but I want you to see it because it's my Aries contact. And the little student that is in it, when you see him, he's a 3rd grader at that time. He's now a 5th grader. I'll tell you more about how he's evolved. Okay? And how do I start this? Here we go, thank you. I know you can't. It's taped on. Listen carefully. High Desert Amateur Radio Club. That's my baby, third grader. Valley High School hosted it. Six different schools, paraphrasing. Middle school student. Remember Joseph when Okay, so I know you couldn't hear it very well, but the little guy was my third grader 2 years ago. He's now a fifth grader this year. He is now being trained. He is one of the team leaders in our after-school ham radio club. He is being trained to work with our second and third graders on underwater robotics. In 2 years, you mentioned that you'll be 50 years old in AMSAT, and in 2 years, Tristan will be at one of our magnet schools in Albuquerque. He will be a team leader launching these high-altitude balloon launches, and he's very interested in solar power. And so what happened on this day for Tristan was a life changer. Also, Joseph Martinez, you saw him up there. He was a sophomore. He's a senior now. He was supposed to come with us. And if you want to hear the sad story about why he's not here, ask me afterwards. So we have to focus on 21st century skills. That's something that is a critical part of educating our students. That STI, and I'm going to call it STI now, STEM Trajectory Initiative, we've taken a non-traditional approach to the delivery of instruction, that our kids are being taught to see projects as the overarching framework. It's a project that embeds all of the content and all of the ideas, the academics that they have to learn through a project. We're connecting not only the content, not only the multiplication tables, not only fractions, but we're connecting the social, organizational skills, the leadership skills, all of those components that we talk about when we talk about 21st century skills. And thanks to my husband, this all began, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. You know, he would take me to the Ham Fest, and I enjoy them, and I love the shopping the best. But the one we went to in Arizona, which is probably where Joe got that idea, the Arizona Near Space Research, they did a high-altitude balloon launch from there. And the connection was just immediate, that amateur radio is our, mother lode, because amateur radio could be and is, and we're proving successful, the foundation for success in education today. Now here are the 21st century skills, and I just threw them up there because you need to realize that this is what we as educators, we have to teach. It's no longer where they learn these at home. It's where these actually have to be taught. We have to teach them how to be professional, how to be creative, oral, written communication, collaboration, teamwork, adaptability, problem solving. We have to teach them responsibility. And if you think about your own job, your own career, your own industry that you've been in for your life, you probably are not able to think of one person that got fired because they did not know their multiplication tables. Probably can't even think of anybody that actually got fired because they weren't understanding Ohm's law. But you can think of countless people that have not been successful because they have not mastered these, what we call soft skills. And this is the challenge of educators today, to blend content with all of the skills necessary for the workforce of today. So here, this is what is new in the 21st century. It's not new. We all have learned these. But it depends now on not just the elite few, not just the kids that are in in Albuquerque, we're divided by the river. We have the Rio Grande River, and the way that we kind of look at our demographics, all of the schools on the east side of the river are different than all of our schools on the west side of the river. And one of our challenges is to make sure that both sides get equal access, equal opportunity. Academia has underestimated the magnitude of the challenge to teach these skills. And ladies, you agree with me. It's a challenge to teach the multiplication tables and collaborative teamwork at the same time. But it's critical. Going forward into this century, major changes are necessary, and we're trying to make those changes. And those of us that have the passion to do it and the stamina to do it, we're doing it. One of the things that's happened over the last few years in building STEM Trajectory Initiative, now you kind of get the idea of what trajectory means. It was plugged in there as the title because we take students at the elementary level and we prepare them for the rigor, if I may, of moving into middle school. We make sure that by the time a fifth grader goes into that transitional year and goes into middle school, that they know how to solder. In order for a fourth grader, that's when we teach soldering, in order for them to learn how to solder, we have to teach the teachers how to solder. And I tell you what, those teachers are scared to death of soldering. It's very interesting. What the loop is with our STEM trajectory is we started with Bill, my husband, some of the guys from the amateur radio clubs around the area coming and helping teach. But now every year we have the high school kids come to the elementary schools and teach the teachers how to solder so that we can keep this ball rolling. This year, APS, Albuquerque Public Schools, we were awarded from the Federal Department of Education a $7.8 million grant. It was released on October the 11th, and to actually do what we've been doing, after our day job every day for the last 4 or 5 years, and that is to build what we're now calling a K-12 STEM magnet school pathway. It'll go from a certain elementary school through a certain middle school up to Valley High School. Valley High School is totally the vanguard, if I may, of STEM in Albuquerque. We've been doing high-altitude balloon missions, robotics, we've been doing rocketry, we did our Aries contact, and now we've moved on to our Cubesat. Quickly, I want you to see that everything we do, everything that we design is around the engineering design process. In elementary school, so many times the kids do the science fair and they learn the scientific method and they learn about a hypothesis, and that is an incredible foundational piece. But we're trying to help the teachers see and understand that we need to teach the kindergartners. Actually, we don't have to teach them because kindergartners kind of do it innately. They love to do it. A kindergartner can follow the engineering design process a lot better than a fifth grader can. They can decide what the problem is, and they know how to fix it. So I put this up here. This was a slide that I've used several times just to show you that I've discovered a wealth of knowledge sitting in this room, sitting across the world in amateur radio enthusiasts, that what you bring to education is critical. You're ready to Elmer our students, and we've discovered that, and it's priceless. You're the ones that can offer us resources. Where education, we get further and further behind. Our operational budgets get smaller and smaller. So we have to go and find resources. And what I've discovered is every single person that is a radio amateur is excited and wants to give back. Hadn't found that to be not the truth yet. You can provide information that can show hobby alignment with our standard. Now that's a critical piece that I believe possibly is missing or hasn't been explored as much as possible. In order for us to roll this out in the educational arena, we have to align what you do with our standards. And that was the root cause of why we started this. You know, back many years ago, you remember the Common Core standards. Okay, before Common Core standards, every state had their own state-based standard. We moved to Common Core, and I'd be happy to sit down and talk to you about Common Core. But you know, that was a huge shift. We also moved from standard-based assessment, which was the assessment that every state would give, to the PARC, or we have PARC or measured progress depending on the state, but it's a nationally measured. Now, education, we still haven't gotten to the international level yet. I'm hoping that we will, and those of us that are really trying to study and understand the international benchmarking that's going on in research, it's coming. Often background check. Most of you guys probably have a clearance anyway, so we don't have to worry about sending you down to pay $12 to get a fingerprint so that we know that you won't hurt our children. Let me move on to the most exciting part. Is through all of this, we've discovered, and we've done this on purpose. We started with phase 1, teaching these kids, elementary, mid, and high, about high-altitude balloon. We taught them about telemetry. We taught them how to receive the data all the way down to the elementary level. We taught them about apogee. We taught them lesson plans about comparing the altitude with the temperature, looking at the raw data, doing a graph, which all fits beautifully into the Common Core standards in the elementary grade levels. And from there, we've moved on from high altitude, but we're still teaching them concepts using high altitude balloons. But we believed very strongly that these kids are ready to take the rein and move into talking about an actual building of a Cubesat to launch into orbit. We're right now developing lesson plans for when our Cubesat will be in orbit. The lesson plans will be aligned, as I spoke to you, they'll be aligned with what telemetry they're receiving, and it will be from elementary to mid to high school. So it's an all-out effort. We're involving, of course, Sandia National Labs. They're one of our wonderful partners. Air Force Research Labs. We have a new partner called Modern Apprentice. It's a nonprofit organization that is partnering with us to help raise funds for different things. One very important component is internships. Our operational budgets don't even pay for additional paper, much less supplying paid internships for these kids. And I do have organizations that say, well, we can't pay you, but we'd love you to come as a volunteer, unpaid intern. And I just very respectfully say that is very kind of you, and if our students lived on the east side of the river, I'd say that'd be great. But paid internships will help support the rent and help support bringing in food for their families. Albuquerque amateur radio groups, a lot of them have stepped up and really support us. Here are some of the goals for our Cubesat project. We built this last year, rolled it out in June, and it developed into a course where our high school kids, sophomore, juniors, and seniors from 3 different high schools in Albuquerque received 3 hours college credit in electronics. They also received 1 hour elective credit from Albuquerque Public Schools, and they also took all of the applied sciences that we taught and were able to learn the information, not memorize it, but learn it, and all of them received their FCC technician's license. And so we have 15 brand new hams that are just, rocking in ham radio. We defined an achievable project to build an actual Cubesat. It's a long-range project. It's multi-year. This year, I may get ahead of myself on the slides, but this year we did the proof of concept. I am getting ahead. Developing their practical and technical skills, and also giving them a chance to be exposed to the top colleges. When we had our course, we had guest speakers. We had a wonderful lady that came and was a guest speaker from SpaceX, talked to us. We had an incredible gentleman that came from AMSAT and spoke to the kids and really turned them around. Thank you, Joe, again, for coming to Albuquerque and talking with us about AMSAT and about satellites. It was amazing. Here's the phase of what we're doing in our Cubesat project. Phase one, we had to get them hooked, and that's why I wanted to introduce all of this, is how we got them hooked. They've turned around and they are now leaders. Phase two is our what we did this past summer, proof of concept, and I know Bill will be mentioning some of the actual details in his presentation tomorrow about the proof of concept. Phase three, which is coming next summer, will be the prototype, and then of course phase four will be the operational product. So phase one, I think I talked about this, the near space payloads, near space mission, getting students curious and hooked and excited about it. It evolved into building payloads that looked and felt like CubeSats. We do everything with a purpose. So my husband introducing us to what a CubeSat was, the kids began to design it and printed it out on their 3D printer so that they weren't just packing stuff in styrofoam. They actually designed what they started calling a balloon sat, which that was their level of understanding. And then they were beginning to put all of the components, electronic components, into their balloon sat. Phase one connected 24 Albuquerque public schools together. In addition to partnering, we had 12 other schools from around New Mexico and Colorado that partnered with us in this first phase. Now, phase two is where I'm speaking of. We've actually moved from high-altitude balloons, but again, we still have to use that to test. We have to do high-altitude balloon launches to test our proof of concepts, which we've been doing periodically since June. But phase two is the dual credits course. They learn space sciences, geometry, physics. They learned about leadership skills. We gave them a leadership style inventory. When they discovered what type of leadership style they possessed, then we applied that to them being team leaders or technicians, building together collaborative teams, trying to introduce and blend in that 21st century soft skills we talked about. 50% was applied learning, meaning they would be in the morning. We'd had guest speakers. Several of our guest speakers were actually students, and they did learning about Ohm's law, learning about basic circuitry, learning about integrated circuitry and schematics. The afternoon, everything was hands-on. Everything was building, from learning about putting together the little electronic kits that you've seen and you get to play with, all the way up for building a homemade Yagi so that they could track one of the passes one afternoon. It was just an incredible experience. We also took them to field day, and if you remember way back there years and years and years ago when you were studying to become technicians, you remember there's a lot of those sub-elements that apply to field day. Field day happened to fall between the second weekend and the third weekend of our course, so we drug all the kids out to Lake Cochiti, and that's when we taught antennas and propagation and problem solutions. So here's a summer course last year, talked about that, and it worked because all of the essential elements were approached as components of an identified project. That's what I talked about earlier. That's why we succeeded, is because we blended your expertise with the educational research and development that has gone into understanding how a child's mind develops. And we just had one class the first year. However, the second year, which is coming up this summer, we'll be running two courses simultaneously. Again, both courses will receive college credit, will receive high school credit. The first class that finished last year will receive their general license, and we will go on from the proof of concept into the prototype. The next class that comes up will be juniors, or sophomore, juniors, and seniors. They will receive their technician, and we're developing a model that we can package this particular embedded electronics course so that they'll go through the same course, get their technician license. They'll build their own proof of concepts to be able to continue. Let me see. Okay, so I've talked quickly, and the reason I did is because I want you to go back in time, because I want to share a video with you, and then if there's any time left, I want you to ask any questions that you want, and then I'm here, so I'd love to sit down and talk with all of you. I'm sure you'll go over my head, but I'll try to go over your head too with educational jargon if I can manage it. So this video that I'm going to end with is my school, which is Carlos Ray Elementary School, and it is our STEM Day. STEM Day is our academic events where we get everyone excited about the possibility, get them addicted, get them hooked, get them excited about their own potential. So, and it's just music, so if you don't hear the music, just hear the music in your head.